Manchester, England, a city forged in the fire of the Industrial Revolution, a city of red brick and ambition, of football and textile mills, of relentless reinvention. Today, it is the economic powerhouse of northern England, a billion-a-year regeneration story with a skyline that changes by the month. But hidden within this fiercely British city is an unlikely story of wealth, migration, and empire that stretches over 7,000 miles to the tropical archipelago of the Philippines. You might not expect it, but Filipino wealth runs through Manchester like an invisible current. It is in the fried chicken being served on Market Street. It is in the Scotch whiskey being poured in the bars of Deansgate. It is in the hands of the nurses keeping Manchester's hospitals running through the night, and it connects back to some of the most powerful family dynasties in all of Asia, dynasties worth billions, built from nothing, whose reach now extends into the very fabric of this English city. The Philippines is home to some of the most extraordinary rags-to-riches stories in the modern world. Families that started selling shoes in a Manila market stall and ended up controlling shopping mall empires worth tens of billions of dollars. Families that turned a single ice cream parlor into a fast food empire that outperforms McDonald's. Families that bought centuries-old Scotch whiskey distilleries in a deal that stunned the global spirits industry. And many of these families have one thing in common: their wealth, their products, or their people have found their way to Manchester. So, today, we are asking a question that has never been asked before. Who is the richest Filipino family in Manchester? To answer it, we are counting down 10 Filipino families and communities whose fortunes touch this city. From the grassroots entrepreneurs cooking adobo in West Didsbury to the billionaire tycoons whose corporate empires pour whiskey in Manchester's pubs and whose fast food chains are targeting Manchester's busiest shopping street. Along the way, we will uncover the staggering empires these families built, the jaw-dropping fortunes they control, and the surprising ways their wealth flows through one of England's greatest cities. Stick around, because the family sitting at the #1 spot did not just send their products to Manchester. They spent £430 million buying one of Britain's most iconic companies. And most people in Manchester have absolutely no idea. Kicking off our list is not a single family, but an entire community. The Filipino food entrepreneurs who have quietly planted the flag of Filipino cuisine on the streets of Greater Manchester. You might not spot them among the trendy brunch spots of the Northern Quarter or the famous Curry Mile in Rusholme, but they are here and they are growing. In West Didsbury, one of Manchester's most food-savvy neighborhoods, a Filipino immigrant named Zosima Fulwell opened Yesla Cafe, a Southeast Asian kitchen known locally as Mama Z. She brought the bold, tangy, sweet, and savory soul of Filipino cooking to a corner of South Manchester, more accustomed to artisan coffee and sourdough. In Ashton-under-Lyne, Tarp's Filipino fusion street food blends traditional Filipino recipes with British street food culture, a market stall operation built on pure hustle. And in Stockport, Imelda and Tony Ko run Roland's Pinoy Store, a Filipino grocery that serves as a cultural lifeline for the diaspora, stocking the homeland staples no Filipino kitchen can survive without: bagoong, patis, calamansi, and Knorr sinigang mix. These are small businesses. Nobody here is building a billion-dollar empire. But here is the remarkable thing. According to a 2021 study by ETX Capital, Filipinos are the #1 foreign nationality among business owners in the entire United Kingdom, with over 5,000 Filipino-led businesses operating across Britain. Most are exactly like the ones in Manchester, modest in revenue but immense in cultural significance. Every year, Manchester's Filipino community gathers for the Barrio Fiesta, a vibrant celebration of food, music, and identity that showcases this entrepreneurial spirit. These families are the grassroots foundation of Filipino wealth in Manchester. They planted the first seeds, but if they represent the roots, the next group represents something even more vital: the lifeblood. Coming in at number 9 is not a billionaire dynasty or a corporate titan. It is an army, an invisible army of Filipino healthcare professionals who keep Manchester's hospitals running through the night and who have been quietly building wealth in one of the hottest property markets in Britain. Here is a number that should stop you. As of 2020, 18,500 Filipinos were employed by the National Health Service, making them one of the single largest foreign nationality groups in the entire British healthcare system. In Greater Manchester, they are everywhere. Manchester Royal Infirmary, Wythenshawe Hospital, North Manchester General, Stepping Hill, embedded in virtually every ward, every operating theatre, and every emergency department across the Manchester Foundation Trust network. This is not a small presence. This is a critical pillar. The pipeline began in the early 2000s when the NHS started actively recruiting from the Philippines to fill critical staffing shortages. Thousands of nursing graduates sat the IELTS exam, secured work visas, and made the 7,000-mile journey to England. Many landed in Manchester, drawn by the city's sprawling hospital network, and they stayed. Now, here is where this becomes a wealth story. With salaries ranging from £28,000 for staff nurses to over $70,000 for senior clinical specialists, Filipino healthcare workers have done what smart immigrants have always done. They invested in property. Manchester's housing market has surged approximately 30% over the past 5 years, and Filipino families have been buying steadily. Buy-to-let flats in Salford, apartments in Ancoats, terraced houses across Greater Manchester. Individually modest, collectively formidable. And they are not just building wealth in England, they are sending it home. The Filipino remittance economy is one of the largest on earth, with billions of pesos flowing annually from diaspora workers back to families in the Philippines. Every monthly transfer from a nurse in Wythenshawe to her parents in Pampanga is a quiet act of economic power, and the achievement goes beyond property. 5 Filipino clinicians, Suzette Basalan, Sheila Kaluya, Marisa Sampson, Kit Torres, and Mary Grace Mayorka, all naturalized British citizens, helped pioneer the NHS 111 telephone service, proving Filipino healthcare workers could lead and innovate at the highest clinical level in Britain. The Filipino healthcare community in Manchester will never appear on a billionaire list, but their collective earning power, their growing property portfolios, and their role as economic connectors between two countries make them a genuine force. Now, we leave the community level behind entirely and step into the world of Philippine billionaire dynasties, families whose fortunes dwarf the economies of entire nations, and their connection to Manchester might surprise you. At number 8, we enter the realm of old money, not wealth measured in decades, but in centuries. Meet the Zobel de Ayala family, the closest thing the Philippines has to aristocratic royalty. The Ayala dynasty traces its origins to the Spanish colonial era. Ayala Corporation, founded in the 19th century, is the oldest and most prestigious conglomerate in the Philippines. This is the family that took Makati, now the country's undisputed financial capital, and transformed it from swampland into one of Asia's premier business districts. Their flagship company, Ayala Land, developed both Makati and Bonifacio Global City, the twin hearts of Philippine commerce. They control the Bank of the Philippine Islands, BPI, one of the oldest banks in Southeast Asia, established in 1851. They hold major stakes in Globe Telecom and Manila Water. The combined Ayala family fortune is estimated at approximately $3.5 billion, and their influence, cultural, political, and economic, stretches far beyond that number. They are, by any measure, Philippine business royalty. So what connects a centuries-old Philippine dynasty to Manchester, England? BPI, the family's flagship bank, operates international remittance services reaching the global Filipino diaspora, including the thousands of Filipino workers in Greater Manchester. Every time a Filipino nurse at Wythenshawe Hospital sends her monthly earnings home to family in the provinces, that transaction may well flow through a financial network built by the Zobel de Ayala Empire. And the ambitions run deeper. The British Embassy in Manila has publicly urged Philippine conglomerates, Ayala Corporation among them, to invest in UK real estate, energy, and infrastructure, sectors where Manchester is experiencing explosive growth. The Zobel de Ayalas do not have a skyscraper with their name on the Manchester skyline, but their financial infrastructure quietly powers the economic lives of Manchester's Filipino community. They built the rails, and the next family on our list filled the shelves. Moving to number 7 is a family whose products you have almost certainly eaten without knowing it, even if you have never set foot in the Philippines. Meet the Gokongwei family, the clan behind one of Asia's largest food and beverage empires, and a name that is sitting right now on the shelves of Filipino grocery stores across Greater Manchester. The Gokongwei story is one of the most dramatic rags-to-riches tales in all of Philippine business. John Gokongwei Jr., who passed away in 2019, was born in 1926 to a wealthy Chinese-Filipino family in Cebu. Life was comfortable. Then his father died during the Second World War, and everything collapsed. The family fortune vanished. At 13 years old, young John was selling goods on the streets of Cebu just to survive. Thread, soap, candles, whatever he could move. Most people in that position never recover. John Gokongwei built an empire. He went from street vendor to cornstarch trader, from cornstarch trader to textile manufacturer, and from textile manufacturer to the founder of one of the most powerful conglomerates in Southeast Asia. That conglomerate is JG Summit Holdings. Today, JG Summit is a staggering enterprise. It encompasses Universal Robina Corporation, one of Asia's biggest branded food and beverage companies, Cebu Pacific Air, the Philippines' largest budget airline, Robinson's Land Corporation, Robinson's Retail Holdings, and significant stakes in PLDT, the country's biggest telecommunications firm, and Meralco, its largest power distributor. The Gokongwei family fortune is estimated by Forbes at approximately $3.4 billion. This is deeply diversified, industrial-scale wealth. So where does Manchester come in? Walk into any Filipino grocery store in Greater Manchester, Roland's Pinoy store in Stockport, or the Asian supermarket scattered along the Curry Mile in Roosholm, and look at the shelves. You will find them stocked with Universal Robina products, Jack and Jill snacks, C2 iced tea, Great Taste coffee, Payless noodles. These are not niche imports. They are staples, the comfort foods of the Filipino diaspora, the tastes of home that Manchester's Filipino community reaches for every single week. Universal Robina exports to over 60 countries, and the United Kingdom is a key market, supplied through Asian grocery distributors who funnel these products into cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and London. Every bag of Jack and Jill chips sold in Stockport is a tiny piece of the Gokongwei fortune changing hands on English soil. The family's corporate succession has been remarkably smooth. Lance Gokongwei now serves as CEO of JG Summit, while Robina Gokongwei P runs Robinson's Retail. The next generation is firmly in control, steering a conglomerate that touches the lives of millions across Asia, and through its exports, reaches into kitchens and corner shops 7,000 miles from Manila. The Gokongwei fortune is immense, and its products are a daily presence in Manchester's Filipino households. But their direct Manchester footprint while real, is still measured in snack bags and coffee sachets. What comes next operates on a completely different scale. Because at number 6, we meet a man whose flagship product does not sit on the shelves of specialty grocery stores. It sits behind the bar of virtually every pub in Manchester. At number 6 is a man who took a beloved Filipino beer company and transformed it into a $27 billion revenue industrial colossus, and whose most iconic product is poured every weekend in pubs from Deansgate to Didsbury. Meet Ramon Ang, the president and CEO of San Miguel Corporation, and a man worth $3.75 billion, according to Forbes 2025. San Miguel Corporation was founded in 1890 as a single-product brewery in Manila, making it one of the oldest companies in the Philippines and one of the oldest breweries in all of Southeast Asia. For over a century, San Miguel beer was the Philippines' most iconic brand, a cold golden pilsner woven into the fabric of Filipino life. It was the beer at every family gathering, every fiesta, every celebration across the islands. It was a Filipino institution. Then Ramon Ang got hold of it. Starting in the 2000s, Ang executed one of the most aggressive corporate diversification strategies in Asian history. He pushed San Miguel far beyond beer, expanding into food and beverages, fuel and oil through subsidiary Petron Corporation, the Philippines' largest oil refiner, power generation, toll roads, airports, railways, and infrastructure on a colossal scale. San Miguel's annual revenues reached approximately $27 billion, a figure so enormous it represents roughly 4% of the entire Philippine GDP. This is not just a company. This is an economic engine that helps power a nation of over 100 million people. And here is where Manchester enters the picture. San Miguel Pale Pilsen is one of the most widely recognized international beer brands in the United Kingdom. Walk into almost any pub in Manchester, the Peveril of the Peak, the Britain's Protection, any craft beer bar in the Northern Quarter, any chain pub in Piccadilly, and you will find San Miguel on tap or in the fridge. It is a fixture. Filipino-owned beer flowing through Manchester's nightlife economy every single weekend, and most of the people drinking it have absolutely no idea that the company behind it is a Philippine conglomerate worth tens of billions. But here is a detail that shows just how close San Miguel came to owning something even bigger in Britain. In 2014, San Miguel Corporation was reported to be considering a £2 billion bid for United Biscuits, the UK company behind McVitie's, Jaffa Cakes, and Penguin Bars, some of the most beloved snack brands in British households. Had that deal closed, a Filipino-owned corporation would have controlled products found in virtually every kitchen in Manchester. The bid ultimately did not go through, but it revealed the sheer scale of Filipino corporate ambition aimed squarely at the British market. Ramon Ang built a company that generates more revenue than some countries' entire GDP, and his beer is poured in pubs across one of England's greatest cities. But we are only at number 6. The fortunes ahead are even more staggering, and the connections to Manchester grow far more direct. You will not want to miss who is sitting in our top 5, because the wealth and power we are about to get into is on another level entirely. Breaking into our top 5 is a family that did not just build houses, they built the idea that every Filipino deserves a home. Meet the Villar family, the force behind the largest home builder in the Philippines, with a fortune estimated by Forbes at approximately $11 billion. The Villar story begins in the most unlikely place for a man who would one day rival the wealthiest dynasties in Asia. Manuel Villar, Manny as the Philippines knows him, grew up in Tondo, one of the poorest and most densely packed neighborhoods in all of Manila. As a boy, he helped his parents sell fish and shrimp just to get by. There was no inheritance. There was no safety net. But Villar had an instinct for building things. While still a university student, he started a small sand and gravel business, supplying the raw materials of construction. It was modest, unglamorous work, but it taught him the bones of the industry. Villar's breakthrough came from a simple but revolutionary insight. Millions of ordinary Filipinos dreamed of owning a home, but could not afford one. So he founded Camella Homes through C&P Homes and began building affordable housing at industrial scale. Homes for the masses. Where other developers chased luxury, Villar chased volume. It worked spectacularly. Camella became the most recognized housing brand in the Philippines, and Villar's company, Vista Land and Lifescapes, grew into the country's largest home builder, with brands spanning Camella, Brittany, Crown Asia, and Vista Residences. His holding company, Golden MV Holdings, became a powerhouse on the Philippine Stock Exchange. Forbes 2025 estimated his fortune at approximately $11 billion, a figure that surged dramatically in late 2025 when Golden MV shares spiked before correcting. At his peak, Villar briefly overtook the Sy family for the title of the Philippines' wealthiest. He also served as a Philippine senator and ran for president in 2010, adding political influence to his immense financial power. So what connects an $11 billion Filipino property empire to Manchester? The answer lies in the nature of both cities. Manchester is one of the hottest property investment markets in the United Kingdom, with prices rising approximately 30% over the past 5 years, according to Savills. The city's population is projected to grow by over 200,000 by 2035. And Villar's model, build affordable homes at massive scale in a fast-growing urban market, is the very model that Manchester's developers are following. While the Villar family has not yet invested directly in Manchester real estate, the British Embassy in Manila has publicly urged Filipino conglomerates to invest in UK property and construction, citing the country's booming housing demand. The Villar family, with its proven ability to build at unprecedented scale, represents exactly the kind of Filipino wealth that Manchester's regeneration story could attract. Manny Villar built an empire worth $11 billion from a fish market in Tondo. His model is Manchester's model. And in a world of accelerating global capital, the gap between a Filipino housing giant and a Manchester skyline is narrower than you might think. But at number 4, we meet a man whose connection to global commerce is not a parallel. It is a concrete, operating reality, because his company controls the ports that move the world's goods. At number 4 is a man most people have never heard of, and that is precisely how he likes it. Meet Enrique K. Razon Jr., known simply as EKR, a mega-billionaire worth $11.5 billion according to Forbes 2025, and the owner of a global empire that quite literally moves the world's cargo. The Razon family has been in the port business for generations. EKR's father and grandfather ran Razon Incorporated, later known as Metro Port Services, a marine cargo handling operation in Manila. Young Enrique enrolled at Bodoin College in the United States, but left at age 17, frustrated by the lack of hands-on experience, and returned to work on the family's piers, starting at the very bottom. In a rare interview, he recalled that he always wanted to work on a pier. That hands-on beginning forged the instincts that would drive everything that followed. From a single Manila terminal, Razon built ICTSI, International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, into one of the largest independent port operators on Earth. The scale of ICTSI is staggering. The company operates 32 terminal operations across 19 countries, spanning the Philippines, Brazil, Poland, Mexico, Georgia, Croatia, Honduras, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Colombia, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Argentina, and Indonesia. In the first half of 2025 alone, ICTSI handled nearly 7 million TEUs, generating record revenues of $1.51 billion and record net income of $483 million. Beyond ports, Razan controls Bloomberry Resorts, parent of the luxurious Solaire Resort and Casino in Manila, along with Apex Mining and Manila Water. Forbes 2025 ranks him as the second richest person in the Philippines. And here is where Manchester enters the equation. Manchester is an inland city, but its entire economy is tethered to global shipping. Every consumer product sold on Market Street, every electronic device in the Arndale Center, every piece of construction steel used in Manchester's building boom arrive via container ships passing through international port networks. ICTSI does not operate a UK port directly, but its global network, from terminals in Latin America to operations in Poland and the Mediterranean, forms part of the supply chain that feeds British commerce. The goods on Manchester's shelves have traveled through a Filipino-owned logistics network that most people will never see. EKR is famously private and relentless. A colleague once described him simply as a tough person. He was known to sleep on his office couch, spending nights at port terminals around the clock. That relentless intensity drove ICTSI from a single concession in Manila Bay to a global empire spanning every inhabited continent. Razan is worth $11.5 billion, controls ports on every continent, and is virtually unknown outside business circles. His infrastructure quietly supports the commerce that keeps Manchester running. But now we enter the top three, and at number 3, we finally meet a Filipino family that did not just plan to reach Manchester. They sent their most beloved brand straight to Manchester's busiest shopping street. Entering the top 3 is the family behind the most beloved fast food brand in the Philippines, a brand so powerful it beats McDonald's on its home turf. Tony Tan Caktiong, a Chinese-Filipino entrepreneur, started with a single Magnolia ice cream parlor in 1975. He noticed customers loved the hot meals more than the ice cream and pivoted. Jollibee was born in 1978, and within years, it was outselling McDonald's in the Philippines. Today, Jollibee Foods Corporation operates over 6,500 stores globally across brands including Chowking, Red Ribbon, Mang Inasal, The Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and Smash Burger. Revenues exceed $5.5 billion. The Tan Caktiong family fortune is estimated at approximately $2.8 billion. Their connection to Manchester is not theoretical, it is deliberate. In late 2021 and early 2022, multiple Manchester media outlets confirmed Jollibee would open its first Manchester restaurant on Market Street, taking over the former Carphone warehouse unit on one of the city's busiest pedestrian thoroughfares. Jollibee UK described Britain as a key expansion market, targeting Manchester for its population density and food scene. President International Dennis Flores stated the company aimed for 25 UK sites, with Manchester a priority. As of 2026, Jollibee operates 12 UK restaurants and announced plans to significantly increase openings from 2026 onward. Tony Tan Caktiong built a fast food empire that conquered Asia and is now conquering Britain. Manchester is on their map. But our runner-up is not just the richest Filipino family. They are one of the richest families in all of Asia. And even their staggering fortune is not enough to claim the top spot in Manchester. The Tsai family sits at the very summit of Philippine wealth. With a combined fortune of $11.8 billion, according to Forbes 2025, they control an empire that touches the life of virtually every Filipino on Earth. Henry Tsai Sr. arrived in the Philippines from Fujian, China, as a penniless 12-year-old immigrant. He survived the Japanese occupation of Manila, lost everything, and started over selling shoes from a small stall. That shoe business became Shoe Mart. Shoe Mart became SM. SM became the largest retail and mall conglomerate in the Philippines, including SM Prime Holdings, with over 80 shopping malls, SM Retail, and BDO Unibank, the largest bank in the Philippines by assets. The Tsai siblings, Teresita, Elizabeth, Henry Jr., Hans, Herbert, and Harley, collectively sit atop the Forbes Philippines Rich list year after year. Their connection to Manchester runs through money itself. BDO Unibank operates remittance services serving the global Filipino diaspora. For the thousands of Filipino workers in Manchester, the nurses at Wythenshawe Hospital, the caregivers in Salford, the entrepreneurs in Stockport, BDO is the financial bridge between their Manchester earnings and their families back home. Every time a Filipino healthcare worker sends her monthly remittance to her parents in Iloilo, she is interacting with the Tsai family's financial infrastructure. The Tsai family's $11.8 billion makes them the richest Filipino dynasty on earth. So why are they not number one? Because one Filipino family did something no other Filipino billionaire has done. They spent hundreds of millions of pounds buying a British institution, and now, the number one spot. The richest Filipino family in Manchester is not the richest Filipino family in the Philippines. They are not even in the top 3. But in May 2014, they spent £430 million buying one of Britain's most iconic whiskey companies. And the products of that acquisition now sit behind the bar of every pub, on the shelves of every supermarket, and in the glasses of drinkers across Manchester every single day. This is Andrew Tan and the Emperador Empire. Andrew Tan is a self-made Chinese-Filipino billionaire who graduated magna cum laude from the University of the East. He launched Emperador Brandy in 1990 when gin and rum dominated the Philippine spirits market. The brand exploded. Emperador became the world's best-selling brandy, moving 400 million bottles across Asia in 2013 alone. His holding company, Alliance Global Group, also controls Megaworld Corporation, one of the Philippines' largest real estate developers, Travelers International in the casino industry, and the McDonald's franchise across the Philippines. Forbes estimates his fortune at approximately $2.5 billion. But it was a single deal that earned him this spot. Emperador Incorporated, through its subsidiary, Emperador UK Limited, acquired 100% of White and Mackay Group Limited for £430 million. White and Mackay is the 5th largest Scotch whiskey producer in the world, with a history spanning more than 160 years. The acquisition included the Dalmore Single Highland Malt, Jura Premium Single Malt, White and Mackay Blended Scotch, Vladivar Vodka, and Glava Liqueur, along with 5 Scottish distilleries and a bottling plant. Emperador beat bids from Grupo Campari, KKR Group, Lion Capital, and LVMH Moët Hennessy Louis Vuitton. The deal was the second largest overseas investment ever made by a Filipino entity. And this is where it becomes undeniable. Walk into any pub in Manchester, the Peveril of the Peak, the Britain's Protection, Sam's Chop House, and you will find White and Mackay products on the shelf. The Dalmore sits in the premium whiskey section of Manchester's finest bars. Jura appears on cocktail menus across the northern quarter. White and Mackay blended Scotch lines the shelves of every Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, and Morrison's in Greater Manchester. Vladivar Vodka is poured in clubs across the city. This is not indirect. This is not theoretical. This is Filipino-owned wealth, distilled in Scotland, sitting physically in the glasses of Manchester. No other Filipino family has this kind of tangible daily presence in the city. Andrew Tan may not sit at the top of the Forbes list, But when you ask which Filipino family has the biggest financial footprint in Manchester, which family spent the money, bought the company, and put their products behind the bars of this city, the answer is undeniable. He spent £430 million on a British spirits company. A year later, he bought the oldest brandy house in Spain for €275 million. He beat Louis Vuitton in a bidding war. And tonight, somewhere in Manchester, someone is pouring a glass of Dalmore whiskey, completely unaware that the man who owns it started by selling brandy in Manila. He is the richest Filipino family in Manchester. And there you have it, the richest Filipino family in Manchester. A journey that took us from the sizzling pans of a West Didsbury cafe all the way to a £430 million deal that put a Filipino tycoon's name on some of Scotland's most treasured whiskey distilleries. What makes this story remarkable is not just the scale of the wealth involved, though the numbers are staggering. It is the sheer range of ways that Filipino money and Filipino ambition have woven themselves into the fabric of Manchester. It is in the small things. A bag of Jack and Jill chips purchased from a Filipino grocery store in Stockport. A plate of chicken adobo served at a street food stall in Ashton-under-Lyne. A Jollibee franchise being scouted on Market Street. And it is in the massive things. A beer brand that has been brewed since 1890, poured every weekend in Manchester's pubs. A global port network that moves the cargo Manchester's economy depends on. A banking system that channels billions of pesos between Manchester's Filipino workers and their families back home. And above all, a bottle of the Dalmore sitting behind the bar, owned by a man from Manila who outbid Louis Vuitton to buy a piece of British heritage. The Filipino diaspora in Manchester is not loud. It does not dominate headlines. But it is deeply embedded in the life of this city, in its hospitals, its kitchens, its shops, and its economy. And the billionaire families behind them represent a new chapter in the globalization of wealth. A chapter where the flow of money and influence does not just move from west to east, but from a tropical archipelago in Southeast Asia into the heart of industrial England. Manchester was built by people who came from somewhere else and turned ambition into empire. The Filipinos are writing their own version of that story. And the Andrew Tan family, with their £430 million bet on British spirits, are the boldest chapter yet. So after that extensive journey, what did you think of our list? Were you surprised by which Filipino family ultimately came out on top in Manchester? Did you expect a whiskey empire to be the answer? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden world of Filipino wealth in one of England's greatest cities, do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories about the empires that shape our world.